Hello, this is my PEES 499 Internship 2 final presentation for the spring 2025 semester. So I did my internship at Transitional Rehab, which was a part of Self Regional Healthcare's rehab services. And so Self Regional's mission statement is that our hearts, hands, and minds are leading our communities to a better health. And so this is basically what they go into their day thinking, going into work, and what they believe that their mission is. And so Transitional Rehab is located in the Optimum Life Center. The address is right there, and so they are on the first floor of that, and they're in a big old track kind of looking room. And on one side of all the desks is an outpatient PT clinic, and then on the other side is cardiac rehab and transitional rehab, as transitional falls under the subcategory of cardiovascular rehab. But other things they offer in the Optimum Life Center are PEES PT, PEES OT, speech therapy, and a vast majority of other things. And so the main people I worked with were my site supervisor, Steven, and then his coworker, Emery Satterfield. And so these two guys, they run transitional rehab program by themselves. And so I worked with them day-to-day basis. That's who I mainly worked with. But since they are a subcategory of cardiovascular rehabilitation, I also sometimes worked with them since we are on the same side and very close. So if they needed me to go do a 6-minute walk test for them or grab something real quick for them, I was able to do that for them. But most of the time it was Steven Schindel and Emery Satterfield. So for services offered, the main one they offer is post and pre-operative surgery rehabilitation. And so what this is, it's a 12-week program, and ideally they want you 6 weeks before and 6 weeks after your surgery. So they'll get a letter from your doctor saying that they want you to go through our program, and so they'll get you started before your surgery. They'll get you doing prehab, so they'll strengthen the joint, the muscles around the joint and ligaments, tendons, all that in that area, so that you have a better recovery afterwards, and hopefully you'll get better faster. But so they want you to do the 6 weeks beforehand, and so after the surgery you'll go straight to PT, and then after your PT session they want you to come back for 6 more weeks just to get you better conditioned and keep that muscle moving and strengthening those muscles. But so this is mostly for knee and hip replacement surgeries, and that's most of the clients that we work with. So other than that, they do offer cardiac rehab, which is for, most of the time it's for people who do not qualify for the cardiac rehab program, since they do have a lot of guidelines for being able to go to that program. Then they'll just send them over to our way if they still need a little help in that field after their cardiac rehab treatments have ended. So we get some that don't qualify and some that come after the cardiac program if they want to continue getting better. And then the last major service and clientele we offer is an exercise oncology. And so this is for cancer patients, and most of the time it's after chemo or after surgery, and it's just getting range of motion and stamina built back up into their lives and helping them that way. And so on an average day-to-day basis, I completed a lot of tasks. I would lead, like an average day looked like me leading exercise classes, cleaning equipment, taking blood pressure, and doing admin work, sorry. But there was other things I did on other day-to-day basis, but the majority of the time I was leading exercise groups. These were offered seated or standing, but Emery and Steven told you what you were gonna do. And so the majority of it was a standing exercise group. So what they would do is they would come into the office, they would do 20 minutes on the new step or whatever aerobic equipment they wanted to warm up on, like a bike or a treadmill. Most of the time it was a new step, and then they would go over to the bar and I would lead them through their exercise class. So what it was a 50 second on and 10-second off interval thing. And so I would show them the exercise and they would complete it for 50 seconds and then rest 10 seconds. What this included was they did marches in place. They would do the left side all for 50 seconds, and then take a 10-second break and do the right side for 50 seconds, 10-second break, and move on to the next exercise, which was hip external rotation. And then they would do hip abduction, and then they would do a first set of squats, first set of calf raises. Then they would go standing hamstring curls, standing hip extensions, second set of squats, second set of calf raises, and then a dynamic squat to calf raise exercise. And so then after that, they would go back to their machines and do another 20 minutes on the new step or whatever it was that they warmed up on. And that would be their workout for the day. But there were occasionally people who could not support their weight or do this exercise standing, so we offered a seated group. And there was also a few 90-year-olds who would come to this group who just needed movement and just to do something active. So they would do the seated group, which was a modified version of the standing group. So they would still do their 20-minute warm-up and cool down, but they would do most of the exercise seated. So they would just do seated marches, they would do seated leg extension, leg curls with like a paper sliding across the ground. Then they would do banded abductions, a ball adduction squeeze, calf raises, and straight leg raises for their workout. And so that was mainly what I did on a day-to-day basis. I would leave 5 to 6 exercise classes a day if I was there for 6 hours. And if I was there for 3 hours, I would lead like 3 classes. So that was a lot of what I did throughout the days. But another day-to-day thing I did was admin work. This would be like mailing letters to patients who have not been answering their phone calls. So if they call a referral twice, they will send them a letter third time, and that would be their third attempt to reach out for them to get them into their services. And I would also, for new patients, they have an Excel sheet that they put everyone's data into, such as when they're starting, when their end date is, when their surgery is. And so I would put all that information in on new patients for them. Another day to think, I also cleaned a lot of equipment while I was there, just after patients used them, and took blood pressure, yeah. So cardio patients, they get their blood pressure taken before and after exercise, and some are manual, some are on the machine, and so I would just help them out taking blood pressures before they would exercise and after they would exercise. And so one of my favorite things I did through my internship was help with exercise oncology testing. So the patients come in and they'll get like range of motion testing on their shoulder, and then they'll also get hand grip strength tested done, as well as a time up and go test and a 6-minute walk test. And so I really enjoyed doing these testing because it was a direct correlation of things I learned in class, so it was fun to see them in a work setting. And I really enjoyed doing hand-on testing rather than just leading exercise classes. It was a change up in the things I was used to doing. And then the last really interesting thing I did was work one-on-one with certain patients. Most of the time they were cancer patients who didn't do the normative things like exercise classes. So there was one patient I worked with a lot, and throughout my internship, they trusted me more and more to work with her. And so I started my internship off, I would just do what they told me to do with her, lead her through those exercises. And then I progressively got to where they were like, she's your patient, put her through what you think is best for her. They started trusting me to make an exercise program and plan for her to do on her own, because we knew her goals. She had a brain cancer, so she had a tumor removed, and so it was on the right side, so her whole left side was weak, and so we were focusing on building some strength there, as well as getting motor unit recruitment improved by doing some single side exercises and just making sure she has to use that side, as well as some core work. So they trusted me to make new exercises for her. And so that's one way I progressed in my internship, was through building confidence and them building their confidence in me to let me work one-on-one with patients and trust me to put them through exercises which are appropriate for them. But also they trusted me with the exercise classes. They would sit at the office and do some paperwork or make calls that they had to do while I was in the back working with the patients and leading them through the classes. I took more initiative throughout my internship and just started them on classes. And if I knew something needed to be done, I did it before, and I didn't need to ask. I knew they needed to get started and all this stuff. So I progressed that way through my internship. So some useful courses through my internship were definitely exercise prescription, through learning stuff like blood pressure, hand grip strength test. I was able to use that stuff in my internship for certain patients. And then human anatomy and biomechanics were very helpful. Patients would come in and ask questions about why are they doing this exercise? what muscle groups are this working? What can I do for this? And I was able to use information I've learned through those 2 courses to help me answer their questions. But the most useful course that I've used through Lander was Physiology of Aging. I remember in this course we did learn the time up and go test as well as the 6-minute walk test. So it was very useful for me to be able to go through these tests with the cancer patients and know what I was doing, and they didn't have to like teach me how to do the test. And then things I've learned at my internship that weren't in a class were mainly like patient-based and interaction-based things. And so one was really like building confidence to correct people's errors in exercise. Like I can see it, but I feel bad and guilty correcting their exercise, especially if it's more than once or twice. But I realized that it's not doing me a disservice, it's doing them a disservice if I don't correct it. So I had to build up confidence and ways to tell them in different ways of how to correct their exercise. And along with this, I learned how to alter exercises and little tips and tricks to make people be able to do them right. So an example of this was one patient, she was doing the banded external rotation and her shoulder kept coming out of like sticking by her side and she just couldn't help that. And so one thing that they showed me, which was like really helps for the future references, is they put a towel rolled up under her arm and she was able to do it because she was consciously keeping her shoulder by her place to turn outwards. And so that was really cool. And then another thing was just like learning to make small talk with patients, because I don't really like small talk all that much. Unless someone's like talking to me, I will do it, but I'm not going to instigate that. But a lot of the patients, they didn't talk, and so it was just awkward silence. So I learned kind of how to fill that void of the space in between and keep people talking, which will be very beneficial in the future field of physical therapy. But overall, I had a really good experience at my internship. I liked it a lot. I didn't dread going. I liked my site supervisors. They were super nice. They made me feel welcomed. And all the patients were super sweet. But yeah, I think it will be beneficial as physical therapy in the future, learning the things I've learned. And I definitely would recommend this internship to anyone who does not know what they need to do, does not know what they want to do, because you see so much different things and it's so hands-on that it's not just observing. So it was definitely a good internship. Thank you.